meeting of the Virginia City Council to order on June 26 at 5:30. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Amendments to the agenda. I guess we potentially have one related to the dog park.
Yep.
So I guess we would add a 5J, which would be dog park grant. And we'll get into more specifics when we get down to that item. Visitors. Any visitors would like to make any comments? Well, actually, I got citizens' comments. We don't have visitors. Sorry about that. Approval of the minutes. Need a motion to approve the minutes of June 12th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 12th.
It's been moved and seconded. Okay, any alterations to the minutes? None? I think I have one.
Good, Jesus.
That's too bad.
Well, on the second page, the proposed FY 2019 recycling program budget, the third line up, that donation, isn't that supposed to be $1, not $100? It says, Alderman Donnelly reported she read a letter to the editor that suggested each household donate, it says $100 to the town to keep the recycling centers open. I thought that, it was 100? Oh, I thought it was like $1 every time somebody came in and something like that. So it is 100.
Sticker, yeah.
Okay. Okay, sorry, then I don't have a change. So, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now we get to citizen comments. Anyone out there like to make some comments about anything that is not on the agenda? I know you don't have the agenda, but if you tell me what you want to say, I'll tell you whether it's on the agenda or not.
I've got a quick question. On Water Street, South Water Street, where the new sidewalk was put in, they did a fabulous job in front of those apartments next to Small City Market. The lawn there seems to be in questionable condition. I've spoken with one of the property residents, not an owner, but a tenant, who lives there adjacent to that new lawn area that's been all dug up. And they wondered if maybe perhaps a different kind of seed could be applied, because whatever was put in there has just failed miserably. So maybe a more robust type of seed should be applied there. Just something, they said, hey, if you're going, would you just simply ask?
So anyway, it's done with a hydro seeder, and I certainly can talk to Jim. I do know that, there obviously is a delay in germination of grass seed, but I would agree with you, Bob. It's like, I think we've waited a while here. So it is on watch from a property owner who's contacted us as well. So we obviously owe, even though most of the lawn is within the city right away, we owe people a decent lawn when everything's all done. So Jim is aware of that, and I'll remind him again to keep an eye on that so that it indeed.
Well, this individual even suggested if the city wants to spring for a 50-foot piece of hose, I'll keep it watered, because apparently that really wasn't the case. And it kind of, the second or even more seedings have kind of fallen apart, and it's just throwing good money after bad. So just wanted to ask the question.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
It seemed to correspond with a significant lack of rainfall as well.
Well, I think
Probably hasn't helped.
Yeah.
AmeriGas, where the gas lines came in are on, it's not,
Yeah, all right.
it's not coming up at all.
They beat it up in pretty good shape too, so, but anyway, just, I asked, said I would.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to business, item 5A, creation of the Recreation Committee. A couple of meetings ago, well, last meeting, and I think the meeting before, I said that I would put together a charge for the Recreation Committee, and the official name, as you have in your packet, is the Recreation Facilities and Programs Advisory Committee, otherwise known as the Recreation Committee. So, you have the charge there. I haven't heard from anybody about changing it, but you can certainly change things in there. You can add, delete. The way it's set up is that the committee would be appointed soon, really, actually, the next council meeting if we go according to the charge. So you need to be thinking of, if this charge is going to work, then you need to be thinking of who might populate the committee. I have it listed there, school representative. We could use the words school liaison, but I just thought that since many of the facilities that we have are right next to a school, that somebody from the school ought to be there to represent the schools and whatever concerns they have. So there you have it. If you want to go with that charge, since this should be, I think, a council committee, not a mayor's committee, that way it keeps on going where the mayors change or whatever. So if you agree with the charge, then I would need a motion to adopt this charge for the Recreation Committee.
I'll make said motion, Randy.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion about it?
Are there terms to this?
Well, initially, I put in terms, and then I sent it along to Mel for him to go through it and see what his suggestions were. He suggested not having terms, that it just be open.
Except that it would be subject to appointment every year. So it's not like there'd be 3 for 2 or whatever,
Yeah.
but it would be at the first meeting, as the charter requires you to appoint a manager, a clerk, and may appoint a city attorney, that would be, like, everybody's term would be, in essence, would be subject to a reappointment at that first meeting of the fiscal year.
Which makes it simpler, because I had in there 2 years for this one, 3 years for this one, and that sort of thing. And he thought it would be better if we didn't do it that way.
And as it is a council appointment, it's subject to open meeting laws, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Any changes or suggested changes?
No changes specific, but once the committee is formed and they start looking at this, would they have the ability to request changes to us, saying,
Yes.
you know what, we,
Yes. And it would be a request to the council, so
Right.
you folks would have to make that change.
Probably the one thing, Rennie, I just, because this is going to be subject to the open meeting law, where it says chair of the committee shall be selected by the committee members, I think that this committee needs a secretary. It's going to need it's going to need somebody to post agenda, or, a board clerk. That's the minimum that they need. Could be the same person.
Yeah.
But anyway, that would be my late arriving suggestion.
Okay. Well, we can either add that in, or just, when the committee is formed, say that you need to have a secretary. And because, for obvious reasons, the bookkeeping requirements of the open meeting law. Simpler that way?
yes.
Okay. All right, well, seeing no other comments or whatever, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Addison County Regional Planning Commission, appointment of delegates and alternates. So the sheet that we have has Mel as the delegate. I assume that you're not going to continue as the delegate.
I can continue for one more meeting. If that's the, if that's the pleasure. I mean, there is one more meeting.
You can. But after that, do we have anybody who's,
So I will tell you that Cheryl, I did reach out to Cheryl, actually, I reached out to Shannon and to Cheryl to see if they were interested in continuing, and Shannon said yes, and actually, he can't legally back out because he's actually already been elected to the executive board, so it's kind of weird the way that their bylaws are written, their schedule's not quite in sync, but anyway, so Shannon's in. Cheryl expressed a willingness to become a regular voting delegate. And so, I can, she'd be willing to do that. I think in the past, if you've got somebody that's willing to be a voting delegate on a regional plan, you want to grab them.
absolutely.
Could be just a weak moment.
So we need a motion to appoint Cheryl Brinkman as delegate and Shannon Haggett as a delegate, and we'll have to be looking for alternates for it.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any suggestion on alternates? Does anybody have any people that might be gullible enough to be alternates?
I'm working on something.
Oh, okay, good.
So if the appointment form is for July 1, does that mean you're off the hook now, Matt?
Well,
Or is there one more before July 1?
no, if this motion passes, I'm off the hook. Yeah.
The cover letter on the front says the term begins July either 11th or 18th.
I think it says the 18th.
Yeah,
that's their-
somebody
their-
marked something in
That's
the
their next meeting.
appointments
Well,
are
the
for term
appointments-
beginning, yeah, it's either 11th or the 18th, so,
Well, that must be the first meeting, I think, but the
yeah.
appointment form is July 1 through June 30.
I know,
Yeah.
but we'll change that. like we
I don't know
changed
what,
it.
what's our term beginning?
I thought it said July 18th, that's what I think it says.
That's what it looks like.
And actually, but now it looks like it ain't, I thought initially that somebody had scratched out
Right.
the other digit to make it July 1.
Oh, maybe that is what they were doing.
Well, I really think that what they meant to do was to make it be beginning July 1, because that's what the bylaws
Right.
say.
Yeah.
And to change the Wednesday, the 17th to the 18th, and the other one's okay. So I
Yeah,
really think
so
that
it
the
is-
terms really is
it's
July 1.
Yeah, yeah.
But what one of the things that they were impressing upon, but this thing says appointments are for a term beginning, they really do begin July 1. In advance of that, what they're saying is that they need this form, they need that form before July 18th. So they're really talking about two related things. It's really, their bylaws, it's a July 1 appointment.
Okay, well, we have a motion that has been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on it? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Appointment of Transportation Advisory Committee. Does everyone understand the TAC, that committee?
So likewise, I
So-
reached out to Brent, and Brent is interested in continuing as the delegate representing the city of Vergennes.
Okay. And I assume you're not going to be the alternate?
That would
So we will be,
correct.
we'll have a vacancy as alternate on the TAC. Are you working on that one, too?
I have yet, but I can.
Okay. Thanks. All right, so I need a motion to appoint,
Make the motion to appoint Brett to the Transportation Advisory Committee.
it's been moved and seconded. All right, any comments, questions? Rakowski.
Brent Rakowski.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nobody's opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Now I have, before we get into something on the next agenda item, I had this sheet about study request form. You just put that in there for our information? We don't have to do anything on
It just
it?
came in the packet.
Okay. We don't have to do
So-
anything on it now anyhow, right? 'Cause-
No. But that, Shannon, what that is the TAC is always interested in hearing about transportation planning studies, and so there's a form in here. I'll give this to you. It really should go in a planning commission packet, and it really could go in a city council. It's not an either-or, it's really a both. They did just want to hear about any planning studies, because they do have some discretionary planning grants down there. So.
Okay, so we'll go to 5D, Municipal Road Grants and Aid Program, Letter of Intent to Participate. Mel?
So what I'm looking for here is, actually, they sent, an email went out at the end of May, and I was not on the email list, and so fortunately, they figured that out, that I wasn't on the list, and they sent me what I included in your packets, and I did, because the deadline was on Friday, it's just my nature that I don't try to miss $3,000 if I have an opportunity. And so I did take the liberty to sign this grants in aid in the hopes that the city council would approve this letter of intent, so that at least the record shows that because it does say that we, the legislative body of the municipality of Vergennes, hereby certify. And so that's what I'm looking for, is for the city council to ratify this letter of intent to participate in the RPC DEC Municipal Roads Grants and Aid Program. And we really don't have, I will tell you, we really don't have a specific project in mind, but the one is under the new general permit. There actually is some planning and inventory that needs to be done that requires an engineering firm. So that's one area that this money might be used for. Another area that we've thought of is to improve the drainage ditches, if you will, on New Haven Road, because the amount of water that heads down through that road does cause a lot of erosion. In this day and age, they need to be stone lined, and so those are a couple of different types of projects that not when I say we, it's not me, but as you can see in here, there's another step to apply for a specific project, but to be able to be eligible, I needed to get this letter of intent in.
So I need a motion to approve the
Motion to
approve the letter of
back
intent.
the letter of intent that Mel has already signed.
Just for the record, we put.
Ratification is a better word.
Yeah, ratification, right. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. 5E, authorization for mayor to bid at tax sale. I'll just jump in a little bit on this one before we get too far on it, is that there will have to be somebody else that will have to jump in. Maybe it's the deputy mayor, because I will not be around when this occurs. So anyhow, go ahead, Mel.
So the way that the process works, first off, we have about, I think there was 8 or 9 properties in town that still have a balance of their 2016 taxes, and in some cases prior. And 4 of those properties, I prepared notice of tax sales and put them out to the property owners, one of which has already made a partial payment and has agreed that they will make 2 more payments within the next couple of months and be current. And so therefore, that particular notice of tax sale did not go to the Addison Independent, and I, in essence, stopped that process. It's Bundy, it's not there. It's
not
Neil,
in there,
it's the
okay.
Bundy property. So they will be all set as long as they follow through with what they had agreed to do. The other three that are included here, Brenda Badger, Tim and Erica Flynn, and Sally, I pronounce it Barat, we'll call it. So what typically happens, if these are not paid by the day before the sale, and the sale, this has already shown up in the Addison Independent, and it will show up for the next 2 Thursdays as well. All of those charges get added to the account and the preparation and filing fees of these. And so what I'm looking for is authorization from someone that's authorized to be able to be the first bidder on each of these tax sales if they still are in arrears the day before the sale. And the amount of the bid would be equal to the tax, interest, penalty, and other charges. So in the case of Brenda Badger, her balance currently stands at $5,161.70. Between now and the tax sale, there will be an additional 1.5% interest on her taxes. So the bid would be whatever the math is, that $5,161.70 plus interest that Joan will post on July 16th. The next one, the Tim and Erica Flynn, they owe $5,312.97. Likewise, there will be some additional interest that will be charged to the account. And the last one that is owned by Sally Ann Barat, trustee, they owe $12,445.76, and there'll be interest added to them. So if those aren't paid, the city would make the first bid equaling all of those costs, and then if there's other bidders, they go from there. The way the process works, if somebody, the high bidder, they must pay their money immediately. And there is a 12-month waiting period for them, whereby the owner has 12 months to redeem the property by paying the bid amount plus 1% per month interest. And if they do not pay within the 12 months, the high bidder will own the property and be issued a tax collector's deed.
So I would suggest that since I will not be available that day, that since the deputy mayor fills in for the mayor, that the motion be that the deputy mayor make the bid. Motion. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Here we go. Proposed FY 2019 general fund budget.
So one of the things I'd like to do is just to go through a very quick run from the front to the end. I have a few little check marks, some of which were the result of decisions of the board at the last meeting, and I also have some other some other items to consider as you go forward. So first off, on page 1, I will tell you the relative to police fines, I budgeted $60,000. We've already collected $59,000 and some change. I have the advantage of a more updated budget report than what you all saw. So we did receive fines for May, and like I said, we're up to $59,000 and some change. So I think that $60,000 could be increased, maybe to $70,000 or something to that. The next line item, I think I stubbed my toe. I entered $100, and it's been $1,000 forever. Where skip a line, the $100,000 is correct,
Yeah.
but the general miscellaneous, it really should be $1,000, and so I changed that just to correct that error. When you go to page 2 on administration, I have a check mark next to the administrative assistant going to 0. I have a check mark next to Joan's salary, just to let the board know that the amount of money that is in this budget is Joan's current salary. And when you look at it, when you compare it to the year before, it's really because Joan's wages did not get changed until after the city council had already adopted the budget. So you were a little out of step in that regard. And so that line item does not include any adjustment. Likewise with Melissa, obviously Melissa works for Joan. That does not contemplate an increase, and so that's something that you should speak to Joan about. Skipping 5 or 6 lines down to Social Security because of your cut, at least go up 1. Relative to the salary of the ZA and the PC clerk, an earlier one, I think I told you I budgeted 15 hours at $25 an hour. And based on the discussion that was held last week, it was contemplated that this person would be a 12-hour-a-week employee. I'm going to say $25 an hour. I don't know what they're going to be paid. And also, this employee would not be paid, would not start until around the 1st of August. And so what I did is that line item of $14,100 pays for a zoning administrator starting on or about August 1, 12 hours a week, 25 hours a week through June 30. All of my wages, all right, so in essence, effective July 1, I will be receiving wages as zoning administrator, but they will not be charged to that line item. My zoning administrator's wages will be included in the second line. So I just wanted to let you know that. So obviously the net result is a reduction in the budget. I will tell you that the $95,000, just so you know, because of my pay and my accrued vacation, and if you pay your new manager at the top end of the salary range of $85,000, and if that new manager starts on August 1, at $85,000, I can tell you that $95,000 is not enough money. You'll spend a little over $100,000. So obviously, if the manager starts later than August 1, then obviously that can cause the number to go down. If the manager doesn't make $85,000, that number could also go down. But I just want to let you know that if your new manager starts at $85,000 and starts on the 1st of August, there's not enough money in that line item. Down towards the bottom, I went back through and double-checked the information technology, and we do need some hardware. Our firewall and switch are beyond their life and no longer under warranty and need to be upgraded. And when I ran all of the calculations on everything that is charged to IT, the original budget that I put in front of you was $30,000. My new calculation is $32,500. The next line item below that, when I put the budget together, I may have done this so early that I didn't know about the Vermont League of Cities and Towns contract for hiring the manager search. And so that line item, I've gone from $1,000 to $7,500 to cover those expenses, because there's not really a line item for recruitment, so I've put it down in there. In the police department, at Lowell's suggestion and other people's concurrence, changed over time from 30 to 20, in the police department from 30,000 to 25,000. Holiday time from 12,000 to 10,000, 12,500 to 10,000. The administrative assistant in the police office from 5,880 down to 3,880. And the capital purchase, which was at $80,000, changed to $40,000, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. In Public Works, the only change that I'm suggesting is the 4th line from the end where it says state stormwater fee. That $1,140 was actually a carryover from a couple of years ago when the legislature was contemplating these stormwater fees. Well, they finally finished their contemplation, and we are going to see a fee, and it's not $1,140, it's actually only $640. So that line item can be changed from $1,140 to $640. In the next category, under general expenses, I've got a dot next to Addison County Economic Development Corporation. I have a dot next to the recycling center. I have a dot next to recreation funding. And I have a new number for the county tax. Instead of $10,000, it's $8,981. It's actually $80.92 for all of you that are keeping track of the pennies. So there's $1,000 there. And those are all of my changes. Obviously relative to police, there's some emails in here exchanged with George about police cruiser condition and age of cruiser and the like. So I'm assuming that there'll be some additional discussion about police at some point. When you step back from this thing, what this contemplates is, with all of the cuts that we incorporated, and then using a tax rate of 80 cents, that started out at, 90 cents, started out at 92.9. When you got those cuts out of there, it actually, the math works out to 90 cents. But again, contemplates using none of the cash carryover. I redid my cash carryover, and Matt wanted me to use my gut, and my gut was 150. I gave a spreadsheet to you out there that shows like 154. I actually have updated that again, and my number right now is about 134, and I think that number is going to rise some. So, and this is a moving target because we don't know how much delinquent tax collections we are going to get between now and August 30th. We don't know that. We also don't know exactly how much electricity we've used over the last month, and we don't know exactly how much gasoline has been burned by the various departments. We really, there's not a heck of a lot of accounts payable that we don't know about. I mean, my department heads are pretty good about making sure that packing slips and the like make it to City Hall. So I do suspect that there will be about $10,000 in revenues that'll come in between now and June and August 30th. But I also think there's about $10,000 in payables that are going to be owed. So my number is still, now it's not 150, it's in the range of 135 to 150. And I can't really pinpoint it. There's a lot of grant reconciliations that have to be done, that some things have positive effects on the police department budget and some of them may not, but that's the best that I can give you at this point in time, somewhere between 135 and 150.
So the last time we met, did we speculate on how much using some of that surplus, wasn't it? Was it 80?
Yeah, so really, let me just throw out your options. Obviously one option is to approve this budget, set a rate for 90 cents, and whatever cash we have, here we go. My guess is that isn't going anywhere, but I thought I'd throw it out there just saying. Another option is you could hang with the budget that you put together here. With the various cuts, and let's say that you were to, don't forget, every penny on the tax rate is $22,600, all right? So if you were to use, just as an example, 22,600 times 4, $90,400. If you use $90,400 of that, that would reduce the rate from 90 down to 86, all right? That's an option. Another option, there's been a lot of discussion about police cruisers, and, I can tell you, as we've talked at the last meeting, You know, we have 5 cruisers in our fleet, and if you, to me, when you look at what we own and what they do, to me, that's the right number. You know, we have a K-9, so you need a K-9 cruiser. We have an unmarked cruiser, that is really a multi-purpose cruiser. I mean, it's not like we got a unmarked drug car. I mean, this unmarked cruiser, it's a multi-purpose police cruiser. We have a commercial motor vehicle cruiser, which is specific for folks that have the commercial motor vehicle enforcement certifications, and we have the scales that go into there. And I can tell you the 2004 that was given to us or lent to us by the Sheriff's Department, it's in trouble. It's in deep trouble. So if we want to continue to have a commercial motor vehicle enforcement, you know, I can tell you this one isn't going to last the year, all right? And then we have 2 other cruisers that really are the inline cruisers for shift work. And so there's logic behind the 5 police cruisers. So there's a reason why we got to where we got. It's not crazy. It's like that's the fleet that we have, and there's reasons for that. Can you eliminate one? Of course you can. Sure. You know, you can decide which cruiser you want to eliminate and have a fleet of 4, and that's the direction that we had. That's an option to you. Another option is in this is whether or not the city council would consider using some water tower funds for capital purchases, whether or not it's police or public works. I mean, you've allocated in this budget has $30,000 for public works towards a replacement truck. You know, we started out with $80,000 for the police cruisers. You've talked about 40. So another option would be to take a look at the tower fund and see if there is consensus in using some of that money towards some of those capital purchases. I mean, obviously you have a policy in place for those funds, and I think you need to obviously follow the policy. But I think that we've used that money for capital purchases. It's not used for operating. So to me, there's some options for you to think about. I think I asked this at the last meeting. I wish I knew where you wanted to be, all right? And I know that you want it to be 81 cents, all right? And yeah, if you want me to hack city, I can hack that. Believe me, I can get you at 81 cents, all right? I can do that very easily. But I can tell you it's ugly. All right, and you're just gonna defer expenses that's the problem with that. So at some point, you know, I don't mind shooting at the target, but somebody's got to show me where the target is.
What are about these suggestions that Chief Merkel made on reductions? Are those something that are realistic?
Sure.
He wants to obviously put the cruiser back in and take some of this money, which I didn't add up.
Yeah.
About $12,000 in exchange for $40,000.
Yeah, okay, I didn't add that, but
Mike, do you mind? Thanks, Jeff. You know, my feeling is that, you know, we, as a council, I thought made good progress in trying to accomplish the chief's overall goals while still trying to stop the budget from going through the roof. I thought Lowell brought up some excellent alternatives to allow him to get a new cruiser and keep the admin, and a portion of the body cam, I think, was part of your proposal, maybe 3 instead of 6 or something.
I just originally mentioned it, but
Yeah.
I'd back.
And I've read, you know, with interest, the chief's response, that a lot of these things he could do without in order to get the second cruiser. As we discussed last week, you know, the police department budget is 40% of our overall budget, with declining revenue and increased expenses. And to me, that is a non-sustainable model. I would rather see his revenue projection be back up where it was supposed to be at 75 or 80,000. I know why it has declined over the last year in conversation with George. So I'd like to see a combination of getting revenue back on track, holding the line with one cruiser and the reduced admin request, and move forward. And if you're asking for a goal, I don't think we're going to have a flat increase. I don't think we're not going to have any increase, Mel. I'm not sure how we would accomplish that. So if we're at 83 cents or 84 cents using a combination of our surplus, our general fund surplus, and water tower funds, if that is appropriate, and it gets us down to 83 cents, I think, to me, that's palatable. 90 cents is not palatable. Okay? So those are just my initial thoughts.
The budget that's in front of us right now is 90 cents, right?
Yes.
And you're saying if we use the 90,400, that takes us to 86 cents.
That's correct.
So where are you getting 83 cents?
The 90 is just from the fund balance and not touching the water tower fund.
Oh, okay, so you're adding water tower.
Yes. I mean, we're hamstrung to a degree. I'm not sure, we don't have the revenue to offset.
No, I just didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I don't mean to preach to the choir, but that's the only,
No, that would be, what, 20, 40?
unless we, unleash Mel and he slashes, services. And I don't see that being the direction that I would be comfortable with.
Well, the majority of the increase is raises and benefits, especially healthcare. And there's nothing this group can do about the rising healthcare. And that's where
So
most of
I
it.
included, obviously, the special funds and capital projects fund that report is sitting here, and I just want to remind folks, relative to the water tower reserve, the way that we do this is 25% of the revenue gets pushed to the continuation fund. We do that at the end of the year. So the point is that when you look at this report, and unless you got some money in the last day or two, Joan, I don't know if you did. Okay, so these numbers, let's just say that these numbers are real, and there's no more money coming in by June 30. You shouldn't look at that 288. What you need to do, it's okay to look at it, but the revenue of 101,141, if that's the end of the revenue, we take 25% of that and move it into the continuation fund, which would bring that from 80 to 105, and that would reduce the 288 by 25,000, getting you to 253. We have some commitments against the 253. We have not. Some of the dollars have been our share. The 10% of the sidewalk extension project, up to $30,500 has been allocated. Some of that money has been spent. Obviously, we haven't paid, all we've been spending it on is engineers and project management, and so we haven't paid a contractor or anything yet. So there's probably another $20,000 that you all have allocated that hasn't gone out the door yet. The Beacons project, you allocated $37,500 towards the pedestrian rapid beacons. Very little of that money has gone out the door. All right, so I'm just trying to let you understand the commitments, and I really think that those are the only two that I'm aware of. There's another one. You also have committed to $46,250 for the Park Street project, and you have historically allocated $7,500 from the Water Tower Fund to go to the partnership, coupled with the $7,500. So you need to be thinking that although that 288, like, wow, 288, it's okay, well, it's really 253, and really it's 202, and really it's 170, and really it's 145, okay? But we're gonna get another $100,000 in the door, of which 75, okay? So I don't, obviously, it's totally the council's call, but as long as, if we're going to use, tower money for capital expenses in public works and police, you just need to remember that if you do that, and it's okay, all right? But if some grant comes along and you don't have any, you don't have any money, then you don't, all right? But I think I know it's tough, trying to get to 83 cents. You can do it. No question you can do it, all right? And if you do it with water tower money, you're saying, listen, this is what we're going to do, and we know that this is going to result in a drain on the water tower, and so you might be faced with not applying for a particular grant because you don't have the local share in that fund. All right? And it's not like you're suggesting, Matt, that we're draining the thing. I understand, but I'm just trying to give some perspective to the other commitments that you've already made.
What is the danger of using $120,000 instead of 90?
None.
Why aren't we thinking about that?
Well, there's no danger
No,
because
only
we
how
have
it
the
affects you
money.
the next year, that's all.
Well, I know, but I mean,
These numbers aren't gonna get any better next year.
we raised it from taxes, we should be giving it back towards taxes, that's my feel. So if we used 120 instead of 90, that's 30,000. That's another penny and a half. Penny and a, yeah.
Well, I mean, the only downside to that is that there will be less surplus to start with for the next year. So it could have it probably would have a financial impact into the next year. That's other than that, you could theoretically, you could use it all if you wanted to.
But what is,
What was the carryover this year? From 17 to 18?
73, 5.
is it a fair argument to say we shouldn't be budgeting for a surplus? We should start from zero, you know what I mean? If you're really doing a budget, it should be zero, not 173,000 starting. So I don't see the logic of not using what we've raised with anticipation that if the police does their job, they're gonna bring in extra money that we're not anticipating. You can't, I just don't get the theory of budgeting for a surplus. And that's what we're doing.
I agree, and I think that I'm less concerned with using that money based on something that I hope can occur. When I look at this budget, from my perspective, we have a revenue problem. We don't have a spending problem. And I'd like to think that between now and next year, when we're sitting here at this table, that we can find some creative ways to address that. Impact fees, there's a number of other options too, but getting to a point where we're not necessarily looking to the taxpayers for revenue, as the sole source of things, which essentially is where we are now for the most part. There's other opportunities there that we can discuss going forward into the future. Because I don't see a lot that can be taken out of this.
I don't disagree with your perspective, Lynn, I certainly do, but if we didn't have a surplus, we would have a much bigger problem than we have this year. And if we go into next year without a surplus, without increased revenue, without some sort of something happening drastic to, decrease our expenses or increase our revenue, I'm not sure how we would address it next year either.
Yeah, but there's new housing coming on board that we haven't had this year. If the Hopkins Road project continues, or whatever they call it now.
Conroe Drive.
Yeah, whatever, that's bringing revenue in that we don't have now. And it's maybe, not putting in a sidewalk to nowhere, you know what I mean? I just don't think that that's a legitimate argument to have a surplus because it might help us next year.
Well, then, some town, it's, if, we have the city of Virgins has a charter, and the charter actually doesn't even require to have a budget. The charter requires you to set a tax rate. Now, to set a tax rate without a budget doesn't make a lot of sense either, all right? So anyway, we've historically had a budget, and you set a tax rate. In other towns, when they adopt their budgets, like Waltham, for instance, when they adopt their budget in March, all right, they actually look at their prior June 30th surplus, and at town meeting day, they talk about how they're going to use that surplus. They aren't talking about the projections. Now, in our instance, because we end our year on June 30th, and because of computers that we can actually take a number, and Joan we use a type tax bills. We can do them in 3 hours. Yeah, 3 hours, okay? And that allows us we can take advantage of that, and actually we can do projections and the like, and so, we have a luxury to forecast that. However, what I will say is there isn't necessarily a right answer here, because let's say that if the city council said by policy, we're going to set our tax rate based on the city manager's projected fund balance. Let's say that was your policy, all right? And so I project this 134 and you use it, and I'm off by 20 grand. When the audit comes around, you're off by 20 grand, and you say, damn, why the hell do we use 134? Last time we listened to AM, we only had 114 or 20 in the hole. So there's one reason why you don't want to be cutting it too close, because these aren't, you're not working for the audited numbers. The other thing is that there's taxpayers out there that will say, what the hell are you doing? You got $134,000 of my money. Why are you raising my taxes and not putting the other 70 into the till? They got those. And then the following year, you're going to hear from a different taxpayers that will say, you ended the year $30,000 in the hole. How come you didn't set a little money aside in the rainy day fund? All right. So believe me, I've been doing this a long time. All right. You can't win. All right? There is no right answer, all right?
But I will just say, Mel, you've always had it fairly close.
I know, yeah.
And I didn't take 134, I took 120.
Okay.
So, this might be a whole different ballgame with a new manager.
Yeah.
This is our last time where, we know your projections are very close. I think at this point that I would say we use 120, could be 110, but we have money on the table that I don't think we should just leave there. I don't think it's fair. And with a new manager might say, you know what, we don't need to pave this road, or we don't know what the next year is going to bring. We have all new personnel coming in. So it's just.
Let me just say something about just holding over a reasonable amount. Vermont does not have the laws, but other states have laws. I've served in 2 other states where you are required to hold over money. You're required. A certain percentage of it should be there. And it's called overlay. And it's purposely put into the budget that you have the excess. And it's usually taken out of your surplus, if you have a surplus. And in other states, they consider doing it that way as financially prudent. And Vermont does not have that requirement. So we can take it all, or close to all of it, but I think it gets a little risky myself about how we're going to end up the following year. And it's kind of deferring the pain. Okay, we can take the pain today, or we can take it next year. So that's the kind of decision it is. It's not an easy one, but I think you should really consider how much you do retain.
There's a lot of variables that we're not in control of. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but there's a lot of different variables out there in terms of where things might be next year that are, I just think that puts us in a difficult situation if we don't use it. I'm not sure how we explain it, given the comments that I've heard from people.
How about the fact that all of our benefits have increased exponentially? Where's that money going to come from? And what if they increase again next year?
Which they may.
Right,
But
and we may or may not get new development, we may or may not get increased revenue, but I think there's a liability, frankly, in changing city managers.
There is.
And I think Mel is very astute at managing this budget and making his projections. And I'm not as confident that a first-year manager or the first-year manager for our community is going to have the immediate success that we've come to rely on. I think there's a risk there, David.
It is, but I'm pretty confident in our ability as the board. I mean, we're the board of directors. I mean, whoever we hire, they're going to report to us. We're going to give them their marching orders. And quite honestly, whoever it is, I mean, I don't worry about Mel. You know, I don't spend a lot of time worrying.
Don't worry about us. I'm not worried about Mel either.
I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what Mel does. And I think that whoever we get in that position, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be incumbent on this board to essentially manage that individual, you know, and keep them on track. And, you know, you and I've talked, I mean, we've got talented people sitting around this table. And I think we can do that. But again, I really want to get us thinking in the next year, you know, what is it that we do to increase our sources of revenue? And I think impact fees is a good place to start. I mean, you look at other communities and you look at what they do and you look at what we do, you know, I mean, that's a double-edged sword too, everything is. But I just have a hard time wrapping my head around, you know, somebody who's been here forever. I mean, you know, continuing to march toward a dollar tax rate, I just don't see it.
So where do we want to end up? 84 cents, 83 cents, 86 cents? What's our,
I could live with 83 cents. I don't think we're going to get any better than that.
so that's using 113,000 basically of the projected surplus plus cutting into water shed fund. Is that where we're seeing the money?
So, you know, this right here is a 90 cent.
Right?
All right, so I didn't bring my calculator, but you guys all got calculators here. But
Well, $113,000 would drop at 5 cents. So that would be, take us to
you need
85.
to get,
and-
I need to get to 83.
Right, and then
okay?
we'd have to take another,
So
what,
you-
45.2.
So you multiply
Take out of-
22.5. If that's, let's just talk about 83 cents for a minute, all right? You multiply 22.5 to $22,600 times 7 cents, all right? It's 150K, right?
158.
Okay, so you got 158,000. I don't think that I don't think that the tweaks that we've done really have changed the numbers all that much. So the point is that if you're going to go to this 112 or whatever the number is, you are looking at allocating money from the water tower fund for a very particular purchase or purchases, okay? And I don't know, you know, whether or not you're looking at, you know, you made a decision about the one cruiser, but you haven't made any decision about whether or not you're going to use water tower funds to fund that, or whether or not water tower funds would be used for public works.
Here's again, you know, it's just the pot, where's the pot coming from? Can it come from the 134 or come to the water tower fund? It's still city money. So what difference does it make? So if you take, I'm going to keep saying 120 from that, you still haven't touched the water tower fund.
Right.
So if you needed it, you'd had it. It's there. You haven't spent it.
Right,
So
but the
what
120,
difference
but the
is-
120 doesn't get you to 83.
We still need 30 out of it.
You still have 38, you have a
$38,000.
$38,000 shortfall to get the 83.
Okay, so if we didn't have the 30, what's the cents? 80,
Every penny equals 22,600.
so it's 84 and a half.
well, closer to 85, but that's okay.
It's closer to 85?
Yeah, it is, yeah. 38,000, 2 cents times 22.6, that's 45.2, all right? So 38 is closer to 45.2 than it is 2.5.
So I can't remember in the policy for the water tower what the wording says, whether it says that we can use money out of that fund for capital, whether it says capital improvements or capital purchases. Capital improvements is very, very different than capital purchases. And if we're going to look at that fund, we should try and go by the policy that we've already set for the use of that fund.
Isn't that how we did the cruisers last year?
We loaned the money.
Loaned the money, it was a loan. Which, we could do that again.
We paid it, we paid it,
We
forget
paid it
we
back.
paid it back, and the auditors made your accounting
Didn't like
look
it.
like you only had 99,000 when you really had 159,000.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make any difference at the end of the day. I so much don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it just the same. If relative to being wrapped up about capital improvements versus capital purchases, all right, I can tell you that the police station is a capital improvement. I think you would agree with me
yes,
there,
yeah.
all right? And therefore, a bond payment from the water tower fund for the police station is clearly a capital improvement, all right? There's no question about that, all
And we've
right?
used that before.
Not
From the
fund-
water tower, from the water tower fund
We
to
actually,
lower the.
that's exactly right. You use that as a
Yeah.
down payment.
Yeah.
So if you're, if the words in some of these policies seem to be getting in your way, that's one way to get around that. But if you start, one of the things, one of the problems is if you start heading down that path of using water tower fund, which is really basically becoming a tax stabilization account, then go to the voters and have them call it that, because you're just fooling yourself otherwise, yeah. But I know that you're at this, I know this is not the most fun. I understand that, all right, to get to 83 cents. But we do have the money, Lynn. One of the things, like, if you look at your report, we have money.
Throw a wrench into the works, but at our last meeting, we removed the part-time assistant in City Hall, and I'm not sure that's the best thing to do, given what's going to be happening in the next 6 months. We're going to have a new manager coming in, hopefully soon, who, even if they know city management, don't know Vergennes, more than likely, and are going to need help. We've got 2 other people in the office who are going to be spending an inordinate amount of their time getting this person up to speed, and which means other things that need to get done aren't getting done. It's also assuming that whoever we hire is going to have the skill set to run the books, which is not a given. So I'm not sure that taking that out is going to be helping the city run efficiently or effectively. Just for fun, it's only money.
Well, if we were going to use money from the water tower fund, from my own comfort level, I would much rather see it go towards paying down some of the bonded indebtedness which we have in our regular budget. And we, as a matter of fact, I think we made a comment about there was a comparison of budgets and where other places don't put those things in their operating budget. It's in a separate fund. So rather than use it on a capital purchase, since we have already in effect done that once before in the police station, in order to lower the debt, we took money from the water tower fund. That would make more sense if we're going to use it at all, to use it in that manner, because that does fall within the policy. We've already done it. It says capital improvement. It is part of the capital improvement of building the police station. So that's a possibility.
I'm not hearing any contrary point of view to that. The sticking point seems to be how much of the general fund balance is going to be allocated to the budget. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, I would just say, you know, you can pick a number. That's why I didn't want to pick a number last week. You can pick a number of 83 cents, but is it realistic?
I didn't pick a number.
No, I know, I'm just saying, you know, you wanted a number. Is 83 cents reasonable? Probably not. You know, if you're worried about next year's budget and you're looking at this year's budget and carryover, maybe 84 or 85 cents is more realistic. So you're not going into next year with all this money that we're not going to have supposedly. I'm just saying, are we being realistic to begin with at 83 cents?
Well, we're going to have to find other sources of revenue anyway. We're just going to have to, because it's just not sustainable the way it is, and I don't think we should, we can't continue to look to the taxpayers to foot that bill. I mean, there's other ways, you know, to bring revenue into the city. And I mean, you know, that's not what we're talking about tonight, but hopefully we can have those discussions next year. I mean, I get it. I mean, we're digging ourselves into a hole, and I understand. Obviously, if we take that money out and we don't do anything to find some new sources of revenue, we're in a worse position going forward. I mean, I'll give you that. I mean, I'd rather have $1 today than one tomorrow, you know, given the way the economy is and given all the other factors, you know, that are happening on a statewide, nationwide, global scale. But it's a whole separate discussion. But we absolutely need to address the revenue piece of it. And if we don't do that, whether or not we take that money out of there, we're still in deep trouble in a couple of years. So I'd say take it, and let's get to work on a way to find additional sources of revenue.
So take it, when you say take it, how much take it are you talking about?
Well, I mean, let's start with Lynn's numbers.
5 cents from the carryover and 2 cents from the water tower. Get us down to 83 cents. So I would suggest that.
Okay, let's make that a motion.
I'll make that motion. Second.
So it's,
$113,000 out of surplus, projected surplus, and 45.2 from water
I
tower.
think what you're, you know, I know he said 2 cents, but I think you're gonna need something a little more specific. And like, if you're, for instance, if you're going to change the line item in the public, let's say if you're gonna change the line item in the police budget relative to capital purchases to 0, and one police cruiser is gonna be purchased out of the water tower fund.
I think you were saying you wanted to do the debt out of the water.
Well,
or
I've heard that, and other thing, it doesn't,
So we'd be reducing the bonded debt from 72.5 and take off 45 and change.
oh, I see what you mean, you're right. You know, and that, but that's what I'm getting at, is I think that relative to adjusting the police department budget, it needs to be expressed in a number, not in a
Right.
rate.
Well, that's what I was saying, that, so assuming that 22,600 is a penny, if you're saying 2 cents, then that's 45,200 that's coming out of the water tower fund, which we'd be putting that towards
The bond.
line 1722090 bonded debt, so reducing 72,500 down 45,6 gives us whatever that is.
That line item,
that line up.
yeah.
And the use of the surplus was what, again, what?
113.
5 cents.
113 what?
Whatever 22, whatever
Right,
22.6
so-
times 13 is, whatever that number is.
22.6 times 5 is 113. I think that did my math right.
And I'll amend my motion to
113.
include that.
So your motion has the 113 and from surplus and 45.2 coming from the water tower fund to be used in police bonded debt.
So if I understand, his motion is to set a rate at 83 cents
Yes.
by his motion by using $113,000 of the projected fund balance and diverting the equivalent of 2 cents from the police station,
No, from water tower to the police station.
well,
We're not bonded yet,
Bonded debt.
using money from,
I'm moving that expense
Right.
to water tower. There's an allocation from the water tower fund in the equivalent of 2 cents against that principal payment.
Correct.
Okay, so, which will then get us at a rate of 83 cents? Okay. So is there more discussion on that? Because we will be doing item 5G, which is adoption of the budget and tax rate. And I assume that we're comfortable with all of the alterations that were made to the budget, because we will be adopting that as the budget. Okay?
I'm just going to reiterate the fact that I am very concerned about cutting that deeply into the general fund surplus.
as am I.
If we come in next year flat to right now, we only have $17,000 in surplus. This year, we had $70,000. So I will go with the will of the council, but I think that this is, there's a significant risk here for next year.
I agree with that.
There's definitely risk. I mean, of course there is. I mean,
And I'm not sure, I mean, even if we do like impact tax, or impact fees and stuff, we're talking thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. Taxpayer is 2 million out of our 2.4 million, so to really make a significant difference in our revenue, it has to be significant things. A few fees changing here and there, or the police getting another 10,000 in revenue is not changing the bottom line.
So then it comes back to the question of whether 83 cents is reasonable to begin with.
I'd say with the fact that it's, I mean, the biggest thing in here is healthcare, and there's nothing we can do about it, and that's going up, and it's probably gonna go up again next year. I mean, the school board is running into the same things. Blue Cross went up, what, 12.5%, 13%, and they're, for this year, boom.
and it's not likely that the legislature is going to do much of anything about that either, or anything else for that matter. But I don't know. I mean, I think,
I don't want to pay more taxes, but it's also, there's not a lot of pork in here.
there's not, but by the same token, I mean, there's a bunch of, in healthcare and all of these other factors, I mean, it's a shot in the dark in terms of where we're gonna be next year. I get that. I get that.
I'm optimistic by nature, David. I just tend to be, and I think that
Yep.
there is opportunity for us to increase revenue in the police department through some of our conversations from last week. With new development coming online, and I do agree, but it's all very ambiguous. I mean, and we could be in a great position at the same time next year if we can get some of these initiatives off the ground, but none of it's low-hanging fruit. None of it's going to be easily accomplished and may not be accomplished in the next 360-plus days.
That's a point well taken. I mean, I'm just looking at it from the perspective of all the other variables that are out there. I mean, that's, I mean, and we've knocked it down some, but it's still a significant increase if we don't dip into that money. And I don't want to be in a situation where I'm getting phone calls where people are saying, do I pay my fuel bill or my taxes? Which is what's occurred. And we're continuing to march toward a dollar tax rate. I don't like it. I can't see it. But it is. It's a tough situation. I mean, I'm hopeful that we can have some broad-based discussions relative to policy issues regarding development and services in the city of Vergennes, because those there's decisions that not necessarily this council, but that have been made at this table. I mean, I'm not pointing a finger at myself or any of us, but, relative to that police budget, there's decisions that have been made at this table that very, very concretely affect that budget relative to the impact and the services that need to be provided. And so, going forward, I'm hopeful that we as a group will be cognizant of that when we make these sorts of decisions relative to what's going on in the city and what the impact is and what the costs are. I don't think that it certainly hasn't always been done, my previous tenure on the council. Well, this is a good idea, let's vote for this, and then, and what sounds like a good idea comes back and there's very, very real financial impacts to it. I'm confident this group can do a better job with that. But there is a lot of risk.
Is 84.5 too high? Go 4 cents off the projected surplus and 1.5 out of water tower?
I could do 84.
I could do 84. I guess I would want to do a little bit more manipulation and not take as much out of the surplus. Maybe get it down to just even 100,000 or something like that. And
Four would be
Well, Mel, if the surplus is
90,000.
134,000, that essentially means we have 6 cents there, 5.9 cents, correct?
If it stays at that
At
134,000.
134,000.
That's correct, yeah.
So I could support using half of that surplus, so approximately 3 cents of that, which is pretty much what you were talking about, Rennie.
the 100,000.
Right.
Thereabouts.
It's 99,
Well,
No, it'd be-
90,600 would be 4 cents.
right, would be 4 cents.
And then if you took the same 2 cents out of the water tower, then we're at 6, and we're at 84.
84.
Well, if we're going in that direction, we've got a motion on the floor, and if you want to go with a different scenario, then you need to vote with the motion on the floor down.
Can we amend?
Yeah, you can.
I'll withdraw it and make the motion to use the 3%,
What, the seconder, who was the
or
seconder?
4%,
Okay.
4 cents.
4 cents out of the,
One quick question. What about the salaries that we didn't discuss yet?
Raises.
Right.
So
I mean, that's not in there.
So.
That's right. So
specific
it-
to
So the only, Joan and Melissa are the only,
I'd also like to address the clerk's office, not having an assistant in there. I am telling you, you are putting me and Melissa right up against the wall. It's, even now, like Melissa was on vacation last week, Mel and I, Mel knows how to run our office. When I go to lunch, Mel can carry on anything there. We're gonna have a whole new person in there. The day after Mel leaves, Melissa and I both have to go to mandatory training for elections for disabled voters. And had we had an assistant that was trained, she could keep the office open and people can get in it. We are pressed just ourselves, and we're gonna have a new manager we're gonna train, we're gonna have new listers in there asking us, where's this, how does this work, zoning. I think you're really squeezing me and Melissa big time by not giving us any help. And we're gonna have an interim, which means we're gonna start all over again and have to retrain the next one, and we need some stability in our office. I'm feeling panicked, would be the word.
We haven't heard this, though.
That's valuable information, truly. I'm glad that you're saying that.
We both feel this way. It's just, it's.
That's kind of what I was trying to,
We would really like to go whole kettle and get a full-time person there, but we are willing to even take part-time help. Any help is better than no help. And so that's a true need in our office.
What do you think, I mean, Mel, you could answer this. I mean, what do you see as, obviously we know everything's gonna be different when you leave. And I understand what you're saying, but I mean, I also understand, I mean, we had, at one time, I mean, we had a fourth person, and I think something went on, we couldn't do an audit. So I'm not necessarily convinced that just adding a person does anything for us. I'm kind of a hard ass. I mean, the other approach is let's hold whoever it is we hire, let's just hold their feet to the fire, and you got to do the job. I mean, and not allow them to dump everything on you
But
and
accounts
Melissa.
payable isn't generally a city manager's job. There's usually an administrative assistant that is doing that, and doing payroll and human resources and all that. We have to Google stuff. We don't know that stuff. We don't have training on that stuff, and we just do the best we can, and Mel helps us out. Well, Mel's not gonna be there to help us out. And we are gonna go through a huge change when Mel goes out the door.
Absolutely.
And you guys aren't aware because you don't work side by side with them, but we do every day, and we know we are a sinking ship, me and Melissa, by ourselves, and a new person coming on, it takes time to learn.
Well, we want to be careful to not set the new person up for failure either, by not providing them with enough assistance. I appreciate your perspective.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how to do all Mel's
Right.
jobs, so there are some things I can't even help him with. Him or her.
I mean, Mel, I mean, what's your perspective on it?
Well,
You've been there 40 years.
it isn't just accounts, it isn't just accounts payable. I mean, back in January, I sent Jeff an email, I'm sure Rennie got it, and I think maybe all got it, about all of the hats that I wear, all right? And it's not about hiring a city manager, it's really about, it is, but it's about all of those hats and how are those things gonna be taken care of? And obviously, there was a time when there was 4 people there, and, Joan and I have worked together a long time, and we're able to figure out a combination of duties that is most efficient amongst the whole office. What Melissa does, what Joan does, what I do, all right? And it's very strange. It is probably strange. I've only been manager in Vergennes, all right? So it's not like I have anything to compare it to, but I came from a clerk treasurer background, all right? And so I know the types of things that Joan needs. So one of I will tell you that when the council last Tuesday made a decision of removing money for an accounts payable clerk, all right? I can tell you what you did is, I'm just being honest, everyone, what you did is you narrowed the field. That's what you did. So, because I can tell you, you cannot assume, I can tell you, I do accounts payable, and some people wonder, like, what the hell is a city manager doing accounts payable? And I'll just briefly tell you why I do it and why it's no big deal to me. Is because every bill that gets paid in the city of Vergennes comes across my desk. Every bill. And if I'm going to look at every bill, it takes me about 12 seconds to load it into the accounts payable thing. Really, it's like a part of my review is reviewing a bill, and if it's an email to Jimmy or whatever, so it's really a part of my duties. There's no extra work for me from an accounts payable standpoint. But I have the accounts payable system all set up with account numbers all preloaded and everything, and so I have it a great system, all right? And I like doing that kind of, that kind of work. Some managers, they don't want to do that. They want an accounts payable clerk to load bills, all right? Well, I can tell you that, you know, if, even though I can tell you that I can do all of the bills in, you know, X number of hours a month, 10 hours a month, all right? Joan couldn't do them in 10 hours a month.
Stamp them, get the budget out.
Yeah, I have them all memorized.
Code them.
Yeah, so
And
it's,
that's what
yeah.
this new person's gonna have to do. It takes time.
Yeah. So I can tell you, that's what you did, is when you took it out of the budget, is you really narrowed the field. Or you have some expectation that Joan and Melissa have capacity to take on that duty. And if that's your expectation, I think you just heard from her.
Is there any way we could put the admin and the zoning clerk in like the same boat? You know, kind of use some of those funds and make that part of their job too? So that you would have the
Not
clerk.
12 hours.
No, I mean, maybe if we added some more funds to it. Could the jobs be combined?
Well,
Just trying to think outside the box here.
In theory, they could, but trying to find a person that has the skills to do both of those, or the willingness to do both of those, it would be difficult.
Well, and the third person offers stability in our office. So like if someone's on vacation and someone has to go to lunch, someone is there to still maintain the office, not we're gonna be shutting down, we're not gonna, the public would adjust if you just say, we're closed at lunchtime, you know? But a lot of searchers are in our office and we say, oh, I'm sorry, you're gonna need to leave for half an hour, we're going to lunch. I mean, right now we alternate, we're always serving the people. You always need someone there, and I just think a third person
I
needs.
certainly understand where you're coming from, but this is the night, you know, whatever they say, the 11th hour, the 11th and a half hour. I'm not sure why we haven't heard this before, and now we're gonna be going back and adding money. I'm so confused.
I really think when Mel left that me and Melissa could run that show by ourselves.
I didn't think so. I thought the manager could do it. I mean,
see,
there's
that's
no
what I'm
reason why we would know that a manager couldn't do that.
Every manager is not like Mel. Mel is in and out of my office on the way to get coffee and stop, take a tax bill. The next manager may not be like that. He may be, I'm the city manager and I'm in my office doing city manager stuff. Mel grew up here. These people are his neighbors, his friends. He's just part of the furniture. The next manager, I do not feel we're going to have that lackadaisy attitude where they come through and, you know, people, Mel, you know.
It's kind of,
So one of the things.
It's a huge
keep in
change.
mind,
It is.
you know, I just want to just make it clear about, so that people understand the process here. I put $15,600 in the budget, and you guys took it out. I put it in there, okay? Now, I will tell you that last Tuesday, you took it out, and I think Joan was in shock.
I got flipped.
Okay, so obviously, you know, that the communication certainly, obviously could have been a lot better in advance of Tuesday. I mean, I get this agenda, I put these things out to you folks. And if somebody is contemplating cutting out a part-time assistant, all right, I mean, you know, somebody could have called Joan, what do you think about that, or something. But I will agree that Joan, I'm telling you, she went into shock. It's like, what? You got to be kidding me. Okay, so I think that is unfortunate that you didn't hear that Tuesday, all right? But we can't turn the clock back.
I know, but I'm not sure where we are right now.
Yeah, right.
So,
Well, that's
You know,
why
we're-
I'm sitting here and it's like, if you don't say anything.
You're gonna own it. You're
Just
gonna-
let that dug hole bury you, because I should have been emailing every single one of you last Wednesday saying, whoa, what are we doing here? But I thought it was gonna go back in. but I'm not seeing it go back in, so I feel compelled to just make you understand, City Hall won't be, it's not gonna be the same. It's, you know, the level of service we strive to
I don't
offer.
see the old, what was the amount that was in there?
15.6.
15.6, I thought it
It was 20, 15 hours, 15 hours, 15 hours. I know it was $15 times 20. I think it was it,
Trying to figure out.
However you got there.
yeah, so divide 15.6 by 15, divided by 52, that's your number.
was another penny.
What do you got?
No, you
So
got all the social security, you got the,
Well, those are, yeah, I tried, I know the other, so what do you got, Mark? Mark, it was 15.6.
20 an hour.
20, that's 20, that's what I thought. It was 20-hour, part-time accounts payable clerk, and I'm not saying that that's all that the person would do, okay?
So the other side of it is relative to very, very part-time employees. There's an inherent lack of efficiency there that significantly increases as the hours go down. And that's across the board. That's in any industry there is. And so, you know,
Can we share this person with the police? Chief's looking for somebody for a few hours a week.
I mean, I wasn't appointed till March, and I mean, so I wasn't involved in the discussion relative to the manager and anything else, but, you know, this is a small town, and I'd like to think, I mean, obviously, we all know we're not gonna find another Mel, but, you know, not sure how to put this, but, you know, my position is the job is whatever we define the job as, and you guys have done that. And so, you know, if we have a person who comes in, I mean, I'm not really all that interested in what they like and don't like. I mean, here's the job, do it or don't, you know? I mean, that's why I work for myself, because my management style went out of vogue in about 1930. But
Well, if we added it back in, I guess we could take more of a hit out of the water tower fund towards the debt and balance it. That's possible.
I'd really like to see the position back in.
So,
I mean, Mel, let me ask one more question. I mean, 15 hours a week, somebody coming in and that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna do accounts payable. I mean, that would sound reasonable to me in terms of an amount of time to do it. But I mean, what I'm talking about the lack of efficiency, I mean, that makes sense what I'm talking about. I mean, with you, you're there, and there's these little pieces of things. There's zoning, there's the zoning piece, and there's the accounts payable piece, and so you're already there. You're in the office, you're there 45, 50, 60 hours a week, however much there. And so you can throw this hat on at a moment's notice and take it back off and do something else. And so what I'm envisioning is somebody coming in and they're sitting there and they're spending X amount of time getting up to speed on what's going on or what's occurred the past week, and then it's time for them to go home, you know?
In a different way, it doesn't help with who's being able to sit during lunch, but if the major issue here is bookkeeping, would it make sense to hire an outside firm to come in and do our bookkeeping once a week or something?
I look at it as far, I mean, this will really throw a wrench into things. I mean, we need a full-time person or none, you know, because I'm not a fan of part-time.
I don't mean part-time, I mean having.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Like we
I
hire
get
the
what you mean.
auditor to
So
come in, we hire
a person
firm.
who's dedicated, they come in, they leave, we're
have a
outsourcing, we
contract, not a
don't have,
salary.
we're outsourcing it, we don't have the issue, we don't have an employee. I mean, the name of the game today is you know, as few employees as possible. You know, it's a lot more efficient to outsource stuff, and I'm not a fan of part-time people, because it doesn't work.
Just conversely, David, I do believe that having a part-time person does give you the opportunity to flex up, you know, at tax time if there's an additional need during vacation times. I think that we need to support administration during this transition. And I think last week, Joan, and, you know, I just want to reiterate that you have a voice, and I would encourage you to use it in the future. Don't wait, you know, until you're, you know, going to pop a cork on us. Okay, so
She held that until around 8 o'clock the following morning when she came in.
I'm glad I was not in the office last Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. And I think that what I'm hearing very clearly from Joan, and I think Mel's trying to kind of support her, is that there is enough work, but there may not be more work than that, because that's what he put in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, my intent wasn't ever to, you know, I'm not trying to push anything else. I'm looking at it differently. I'm not trying to push anything.
No, we're trying to push back what landed on us.
I understand that. I'm not trying to put anything additional on Melissa and Joan. I'm just saying, I'd like to think we can hire somebody who can hold their feet to the fire. Here's the job, you can do it, you know?
I'm not sure I can get this off of dead center, but perhaps if we put the 15.6 back in the budget, and I don't have all the numbers, hopefully Mark has already done some numbers here, and took roughly the 100, or was it 99,000 out of the surplus, and basically take the additional amount out of the water tower fund, and that would just buy down more of the debt service, because we've got, you know, in debt service in the police department, between interest and principal, we've got 120,000 or something like that, so it's a big chunk of money. And still, I thought we were at 84 cents as opposed to 83 cents, so I haven't been working all those numbers.
That was our last
Well, we're
conversation.
looking at
Yeah.
4 cents out of the proposed surplus and 3 cents out of water tower. Adding this in probably pushes us close to 91 cents before we do anything, so that would take us to 84.
So can I just have, I'd like just a little bit, and it's just maybe just me, all right? Relative to, if you can look to the police budget, all right?
I'd make a real proposal, I'm just trying to run these numbers.
Yeah, so let me just ask you, if you got two line items that relate to the police station. One of them is the bond and the other is the interest, okay? So let's just say that we focused on the $72,500 bond, all right? And so you at the last meeting, we talked about 2 cruisers, you landed at 1, that's where you landed. You've seen George's emails, he's not wild about that, he's ready to give whatever, but if the city council is still at that point, that's where you're at. So just hold that thought for a minute. If you were to pay the 72.5, the entire 72.5 out of the water tower fund, all right? So that's 72.5 gone from the budget, and you put $15,600 in, you actually have to put another $1,000 in because Social Security goes from 17,000 back to 18,000, so it's really 16.6. So you got 72.5 minus 16.6, all right, is $55,900, okay? And if you're, I think that my net, it isn't gonna change the numbers, very much, but if you use did you say 90,000 from the surplus? Or how much from the surplus?
99 something.
You're talking about
90,000.
4 cents. 4 cents?
4 cents.
Okay.
$96.
Okay.
90,600.
90,600.
Right.
Okay. So,
90600 is 4
okay.
cents. That's
So
20
that's,
22
so
6
that
times
right
4
there is
90600.
146,500. So 146,500. And that gets you your, that's 145,600 divided by 22.6 equals,
6.48.
okay. So that gets you to 83.5 cents.
Well, if we're
You were at 90.
right, but if adding that
I got-
part-time salary.
I got that in.
Doesn't that actually bump us closer to 91 before we started all this game?
No, I'm starting from 90. I'm starting from 90, and if you take $72,500 out of the budget, put $16,600 into the budget, the net is $55,900 of out, all right? And then if you bring forth 90,600, then you add those two numbers together, and that equals 145.5. And if you divide 145 by 22,600, it gets you 6.5 cents, so it moves the 90 cents to 83.5.
Doable to me.
Half's better than none, I'm okay.
But we still haven't addressed the salaries.
Well, the salaries, what has happened with Joan would probably happen again. I wasn't thinking about Melissa, but I mean, what has happened is that it just goes in the budget and it's over at the end of the year. That's what it is. By whatever that amount is, that salary line will be over.
Just the way it happened this year
Yeah.
as well.
Mel, did you mean 146.5 or 145.5?
146.5 divided by 22.6.
So I'll make the motion to do all the things. And set the tax rate at 83.5.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have all the numbers?
I think we do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, do we have any more discussion on it? Do you think we're there?
Call for the vote quick.
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Sophie, it's your turn. Dog park.
What's that?
I said Sophie's turn. Dog park.
Not yet.
Oh, yeah, we're not there yet. Okay,
Yeah.
so now,
Jay,
we're going to report of the city manager search committee. Jeff?
Well, as of Friday, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we had 23 applicants who have filed with VLCT. They have been screened. They are considered qualifiable. We have not yet seen them. The posting will close on July 9th. The search committee is going to meet again on Thursday by phone at 6 o'clock to specifically discuss where we are in terms of the interim manager position. Carrie Johnson, who's on our committee, has begun making phone calls, and I will be speaking with VLCT tomorrow for some names from them as well. That is currently where we stand. Any questions?
So we are assuming that there will be an interim.
We are assuming.
Because then our next meeting would be Mel's last, and if we had
Right.
candidates, we'd be basically
Right.
possibly hiring somebody who would take the position the next morning,
Exactly.
which is probably not feasible.
Right.
Yeah, because if we end up getting somebody, if we got somebody right now, today, who was currently or is currently a manager, they would not be able to report for duty at the time that Mel leaves, because they would need to give more notice than a month in that kind of a position. So
And we would want them to.
Right. So we're really going to have to rely on an interim for some period of time, and I don't know what that, obviously, I don't know what that period of time is.
You have 23 candidates, that's a very good,
It's very encouraging.
Yes.
very encouraging.
And they expect a much higher number than that by the
That's
time we
great.
close.
They
That's good-
anticipate
that's good
giving us
news.
40 to 50,
That's good news.
so our pool is quite deep.
Okay, so we move on to report of the zoning administrator search committee. Shannon?
Real quickly, as of Friday evening, we have 3 applicants. One is probably overqualified, one is right in the sweet spot, one maybe not so much. We also, I've had some conversations with some other people about doing this on a temporary basis. In fact, I had a phone call just before coming here. The search committee is meeting again tomorrow evening to review what we've got so far and figure out what our next steps are. One way or another, we're gonna have somebody in place, I feel pretty confident of, that is gonna be able to do the customer service piece, take care of people when they want zoning permits, et cetera. You know, it may be a temporary thing until we can find somebody longer term, but we will get the job done.
Thank you, great. All right, now we get to 5J, the addition, dog park grant. Who wants to take on that one first?
While reading through minutes, looking for mistakes and finding them, I saw that Mel had said he was unaware of any grants, and so I Googled dog park grants, and I found some. And I knew that Stephen and Rapport were of interest, so I called them up and said, hey, I'm leaving on vacation on Wednesday, but if you can get a grant put together by Saturday, because that's the deadline, here's the link. And they have both refurbishing and new. If you're looking for, they're giving away 8 new dog park grants at $25,000 apiece. Then they need a letter from somebody in the city saying thumbs up, and they need pictures of the proposed site and some thumbnail sketches of what you're proposing and proof that the community's behind it. It's in our Basin Harbor plan already that we have a downtown basin. So I mean, we kind of already have done that. It's already written in some of our documents. It's easy to take pictures down at the basin, and so I just dropped it in their lap and said, good luck.
Are they willing to?
They've already contacted Mel.
I mean, I looked at the
Yeah.
application today. It doesn't seem all that complex. It seems like it's doable if somebody is doing it, you know?
I don't
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
haven't touched base after my call to them on Saturday or Sunday. And I happened to go into the office today and saw the form letter that I think you got sent. I was like, oh, I guess somebody's doing something. And that's as far as I got it, so.
So I don't know how, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, Rennie, I don't know how available Amy is to provide any assistance, because I know that, sometimes she can be of assistance relative to pictures or doing some writings or something, I just don't know. But I mean, really, this thing is, we're up against a deadline, and I looked at the application, it's not like you gotta write War and Peace to do that, it's pretty straightforward. And I tend to feel that because, if this was not in your downtown master basin plan, I would be suggesting that you not apply and you go to the planning commission, have the planning commission go through some site inspection thing, but I think that the city's already done that planning already. You've done it, it's in place, it's in there, and now you're in the implementation mode, and so I don't see any, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be, if you got this grant, I think there really still should be some public, some communication about this, but the key is to get an app, get this app in, so. And to me, I really believe that for this particular site, I've never built a dog park, but if you think about, Lynn, you mentioned about water, obviously you need fencing. We already have parking. we already have water to the docks, and so the idea of having a water line off from that water line to serve there. There's already portalets at the Virgins Falls Park. You know, I really think this is a pretty simple addition to that park, and I don't see the
We even
Green
have
Mountain
the dog
Power.
bags there.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So I mean, the city certainly owns other pieces of property like New Haven Road and Fisher Park, but I can tell you those are, you know, to build a dog park there, you know, to supply parking, you're talking about $200,000 project. So I mean, this could be a really a good opportunity, so.
I think when this came up 2 meetings ago, there was a discussion that we needed to partner with Green Mountain Power as to whether or not we could place it under their power lines, or if we needed an easement or not. Do we have any further information on that?
I know that we can't build anything within that easement. I would assume that a fence shouldn't be an issue as long as that fence is constructed in such a way that there's gates that if they need to get through there. I just can't imagine that that would be a problem, but, I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind reaching out to, Jacobson is my guy that I deal with them. I mean, you think, we just barely granted them permission in our park, you'd think that it's really.
You would think.
Yeah, you would think.
So, we're not really sure that the Rappaports are going to really do the lion's share of this, though, are we?
Well, one of the things is that there is a letter that needs to, I think if you want to take action, I would suggest that your action be to authorize Rennie to sign the required letter representing the legislative body for this application. Okay? He gave it to me. It's in one of these stacks. But anyway, it's a form letter that we
Yeah, it's a
put
form
on
letter. I
letterhead.
read it. It's a real easy one, yeah.
Yeah, so I think he needs to have, you know, if you grant him that authority, and obviously, you know, I would much prefer to have the details, but we do, in our master plan, it does show the park there. I mean, you know, and, you know, obviously needs a little more detail, but, you know.
I guess the question, because it's not clear in my mind, is the city the applicant?
I would say
The
yes.
city's the applicant?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the way the forms are and the way you fill it in, it implies that it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah.
But,
It probably could be a nonprofit. The
Yeah.
city is given permission to use the land. I mean, there would be other way, but I don't think we have time to do that. So I think at this point, it would be the city asking for it to use their land.
so then the motion that would be necessary is to authorize putting in an application to PetSafe. I think that's the name of the organization, PetSafe, for a grant for a dog park and authorizing the mayor to issue a letter of support.
I'll make said motion.
It's been moved and
Seconded.
seconded. Any further discussion on this? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. All right, let's get to the city manager's report here.
So, my budget report is just a little bit more current than yours because mine includes payroll that Joan did for last week, which was the last payroll for the period. As I mentioned, there will be some additional revenues and some additional expenditures that will go against this budget. I will tell you that the administration, that's not the most current one. That's the one I want right there. So administration, the budget for administration was $380,647. At this point, the expenses are $381,662. So we're at 100.27%. And I think had the city council appropriately budgeted for Joan and Melissa and me, I would have been fine in that regard. Relative to the police department.
Excuses, you tell me.
I know, I don't want to hear excuses. Police Department, the budget was $898,600. To date, the expenses are $880,119.97.94%, Mr. Chabot.
You feel nervous that's yourself in the end zone?
A little bit, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so anyway, I don't mind challenges.
That's all right.
So now George can go buy a ream of paper. Public Works, the budget was 761. We came in at 707, and it's really a combination of projects that just didn't happen. You know, sidewalk projects, park projects, we did go over budget a little bit. That's one of the realities of paving, is that you do, like School Street, it's great, it's a great project, and there was an estimated tonnage, if you will, for that project, and then when you go out and do the project, it's not like you can, if you spend too much, you can scrape it back up and put it back in the truck. It is what it is. So although we went over a little bit in that regard, that came in pretty good shape. And so obviously those things are leading to the surplus that you have. And we'll, by your next meeting, by then, I really should be able to give you a budget report that would be, other than delinquent tax collections through August 30, that's the only variable that really you should have. We'll have everything else booked. Swimming pool budget, the swim team, there's like 3 refunds in your packet there. The swim team allows people to remove themselves from the team and get a full refund. By today was the last day, and so there was 3 such refunds. And so I think that the team member count is either 117 or 118, which obviously is a good number. And what that does is that drives up season passes. You can see that seasons passes are already over budget. A lot of lessons have been signed up. I will tell you that when you adopted the swimming pool budget, I really feel that you adopted on a season-to-season basis and not on a fiscal year basis, because we didn't wait until the 1st of July to buy a vacuum and get hot water in the bathhouse. So that's why I present it on a season-to-season basis. So I will tell you, the vacuum, I won't bore you with all the details, but this has been a problem. We ordered the vacuum, that we wanted to order, and it came missing some pieces and parts, and Rick put the thing all together. The directions for the cart did not match the pieces that came in the cart. But it was originally boxed, and then when they sent us the right parts, they were the wrong. Then they tried to send us the right parts that were missing. They sent us the wrong parts, and we sent those back. And anyway, it finally made it to the water. It works just fine. We're all set. So we actually, just so you know, the $5,000. So the vacuum cost $3,415. The swim team donated $2,000. The Vergennes Community Group, which is a group affiliated with the schools, to me it's kind of like a PTA or PTO. They had a school party at like the last day of school that was coordinated by them. And as a gesture, if you will, they donated $500 towards the vacuum as well. So we ended up with $2,500 worth of donations, if you will, towards a $3,415 vacuum that we thought was going to cost $5,000. So we ended up in pretty good shape there. And so you actually you can see there, I think that when the city council said, we're going to do the vacuum and we're going to do the hot water, and those are going to be the capital expenses for the $5,000. There still is some money available there. So that's quick. Well, yeah. I will tell you that if you definitely do need a roof. I don't question that, but I can tell you what I think is the next expenditure is I really think that the pump house building should be enlarged. I think that the chlorine and all of the chemicals should be next to the pump house building and not being in the middle of a storage room. And so somebody should design and build in essence, I'll say about a doubling of the size of that pump house, and have all of, by having the chemicals over there, because I can tell you what we're doing now is my sewer plant operators take 2 6-gallon gas cans of chlorine and carry it from the tank that's in the garage to another tank that they dump it into. Well, why don't we just put the 330-gallon tank down next to the pump house, and nobody has to, you set the chemical feed pump up and you're good to go, So, I can tell you, you can't do that for $1,880, but I can tell you that, I know the roof is needed, but that project really, it really makes a lot of sense, just kind of operationally to do.
Now, are they still doing equipment storage in with those chlorine tanks?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, not good, not good. So that's the pool.
It was though, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Capital improvements, this is the sheet that I was referring to on the sewer line replacement. I can tell you that there is a warrant to close out the tree fund. There's a bill from Greenhaven for $2,146.70, and I've been coordinating some tree planting that will occur on South Maple Street. Although we talked about closing out the pump house restoration fund, the $74 that got spent was really for plywood because we had kids with BB guns shooting out the windows in the back, and so we've put plywood on the front. So that fund is still sitting there. It's not going to get closed out, but the tree planting will be closed out. So that's that one there. Delinquent property taxes, one of the things is I'm not able to show you, I don't mind talking to you at all about what the 3 property owners that are up for tax sale as to what they owe, because if you're up for tax sale, you have to disclose, the total of what they owe. Relative to the other taxpayers, we can't tell you what they owe because of the homestead declarations and their state payment adjustment, but the total is in there. You can see that the taxes as of June 22nd was $46,623, and we ended last year, 60 days into the year, with 46 and some change. As I mentioned last week, I really think that we're gonna collect these taxes, either if we're paying them ourselves for this tax sale or they're going to pay them. So we'll be lower than that 46,000, I'm sure of. How much lower, I don't really know. Sewer assessments are not confidential, and so you can see that we have a number of accounts that are in trouble. You see anybody in here that's 4 figures, that's 2.5 years worth of sewer. So we have some bad accounts and these are folks whose taxes are paid through their ESCO. So I haven't done any tax sales on any of these, but that's really the next step on a number of these accounts. That's not very impressive. The Mahawi appeal, all that I wanted to mention to you, is, as you saw, I sent David Schlansky an email that I included in your packet requesting that he consider withdrawing his appeal. I did not get any response to him whatsoever. And so, obviously, to be honest with you, I'm still sore about spending $13,000 already, and I'll be even more sore, but I won't be working here when you all spend the next $6,500. I think about paving Booth Woods. It cost about $15,000 to pave Booth Woods, and I can tell you, if it wasn't for the legal fees, we would have been able to pave Booth Woods. Sidewalk, it costs $100 for a cubic yard of sidewalk that does 20 feet of sidewalk, all right? So just do the math, spending $13,000 on legal fees as opposed to doing sidewalk, that's where the money goes. So it's very unfortunate, didn't get a response from that. So unfortunately, we're going to, continue on with that. Under other topics of interest, if you all remember, we got a 1272 order where electric overflows from McDonough Drive, and Rick and I have been working in that regard. And we prepared an RFQ, and 3 engineering firms came to the treatment plant yesterday morning. And the deadline for their submissions is, I believe it's July 15th or 16th. And so there'll be an engineering firm that needs to be selected, and all of the expenses go into a planning advance, if you will. So we're moving along. That 1272 order is staring you in the face, and we've got to, have an engineered plan that you will have to implement to eliminate, if at all possible, the overflows from the McDonough Drive pump station. So we'll keep you posted on July 24th. So I think that's, one thing I feel bad about is, we've been waiting for it to rain so that Matt Crowley can make it back to City Hall to finish the conference room. And it just doesn't want to rain, but we did find the fire alarm, and that got put back, and the smoke detector up in the ceiling. So we do have one new panel in that ceiling, but again, we're just waiting for it to rain, and hopefully get that finished up. And I'm assuming, one of the things, we can't do the carpeting until the Opera House does that door, all right? And I haven't seen any activity in that regard, but I think that Norman has been around. I believe that they're, getting that coordinated. So that's all I have. I'm hungry.
Okay, and it's me, and there's, unfortunately, there are a few items. First one, I guess, Dave, if you want to mention the skate park.
Yeah, we're planning on having a work day over there this Saturday. I will have, I'll get some Arbor Coat, which is a stain and preservative from Abishans. Have some brushes, and I'll borrow some push brooms from Jim Larrow in Public Works. And plan on starting work at 8 o'clock, work till about noon, because the stain preservative, you can't paint much, you can't use it much afternoon, or it's not effective. It dries too quick on the surface of the wood. So I've worked with Lee Shorey. She's getting a number of the young folks that skateboard there together to work, and anyone else that's interested can show up as well, wear old clothes that can get dirty, and bring sunscreen.
And it's going to be 92.
It's going to be 92. Water, oh, there's water through there. But yeah, it's going to be hot.
Okay, and I just have a couple of things. I will not be at the next council meeting, so Jeff will be doing that meeting. You may recall when I took the position that there was Florida, and then there was a time in July that I would be away. And so I will not be at the next council meeting. And the July 24th council meeting is going to be kind of a special event. And having dialogues with Mal about his swan song, we're going to use the last council meeting as the community event in celebration. I don't know, was that the right word for celebration of recognition of his retirement?
Celebration from his point.
Yes. And so the last meeting will be in the Opera House, and there will be goodies for people to munch on, and, we're inviting the community to be there for his swan song.
A working meeting.
A working meeting.
Working meeting.
Yeah. So, then that's it for me.
Then I'll make the motion to adjourn.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. I know there's somebody.